Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S back in another video. Obviously back at you with part two of a sort of mishmash video about reparations and why I think they're important and how I think they could perhaps be done or happen. Please check out part one if you haven't already done. I hope you look out for part three when it comes out, all being well, and try not to waffle as I often say, so please forgive me if I do repeat myself. But I don't know if I covered much about why I think reparations are in part one, but I think they are important in my opinion. I'm just going to get to that point because if a country has been left poor, like India was apparently the richest country in the world before the UK colonized it. So if a country has been left poor, apparently it was debatably or arguably 23%. It had 23% of the world's GDP, and it went down to 4%. Obviously. I think that if people are wronged, they need to be reparated. So if you can look back at evidence that people were actually wronged, then I think it would be good to reparate them. So that's why I think it's important. I hope that clarified my position on that one. And as an anti-imperialist, my opinion is that if there is evidence that things were looted or people were tortured and killed and all sorts of horrible things, that they should be reparated for such. And I'd love to hear your opinion or any questions as well. I think that covers really why I think reparations are important. Basically, it's righting a wrong, possibly a wrong from the past, or either from the far past or the recent past. I suppose it can't be righting a wrong for the present, perhaps, or maybe. But obviously, you can't right a wrong in the future, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I'm going to try not to waffle, as I say. But anyway, here are some of the things I think could be done to reparate. I mentioned about technology and how the black diaspora could be helped in technology, and that could be a form of reparations. And Asians and Africans or people of colour generally could be supported in areas like business or even politics or things like that, and be given funding and network together. So, but yeah, now I want to cover some other ideas about if I can. So number 11, I would love to support investors and inventors, MDs, managing directors, CEOs, chief executive officers, that is chairmen and chairwomen, from developing countries, from Asia and Africa and Ireland and what I call the six generally, and also people of colour around the world generally in those sorts of fields, including inventions, if I didn't include that already. But yeah, so to help more people of colour become investors, for instance, and be financially empowered, which is probably the easiest way I could measurably empower them. But yeah, I hope God agrees with me on many of my ideas and shows me he's on my side, but I'm not too sure. But anyway, I might hope it or pray and that sort of thing. But yeah, number 12, also, like, I think it'd be great if people mentored for people in developing countries. Like, for instance, I've often mentioned like Richard Branson's Virgin Company, group of companies, or John Chambers. I don't know if he's still the CEO, but companies like Cisco, which John Chambers, who's also dyslexic, used to be the CEO of, who's also dyslexic like Richard Branson. But yeah, they could have academies, especially for dyslexic people, in developing countries like in parts of Asia and Africa, possibly also in Ireland and colonized countries. That could be a form of reparation if there are like mentorship programs, academies, training centers, and that sort of thing in those countries, and people go and mentor people in those countries and teach them and train them and stuff like that. Number 13, I know there'll be lots of challenges to reparations, and I'm prepared to listen to the other side of the argument and that sort of thing. Number 14, I hope that I'll take on the challenges, and I think there's been some interesting debates on reparations. One of the things I was thinking actually is that there's Oxford Union and probably a lot of places in the West, like in America or the UK, host events on debating reparations. But I think the thing is, the irony is, even though they're debating reparations, probably not much action is taken on those reparations, and necessarily, but or maybe some are, but probably not that much. But I imagine so anyway. But maybe Asian and African nations should be able to host debates on reparations, so it helps their economies. I hope that made sense. But yeah, I suppose from the debates on reparations, like by Shashi Tharoor, if I'm pronouncing the name right, people like me have seen those and thought, yeah, I would like to support India because of those debates, for instance. Number 15, I hope to bring together anti-imperialists like myself to work together on the shared goal of financially empowering parts of Asia and Africa, Ireland, and what I call the Six generally, or former colonies generally, as well as emerging markets and people of colour or indigenous people from the Americas and places like that. And yeah, I love to bring a network together to share that sort of goal and work together on that shared goal. And again, as I mentioned in part one, I think if Asians and Africans are to get reparations, I think they should use reparational money to invest in each other and support each other. And I think Asian and African nations are a bit too divided, or way too divided. So it would be hard to see them come together to work towards empowering each other. And I think, I say there's strength in numbers, or we're stronger together, as I often say, hashtag stronger together. So I think if countries that were colonized could work together, they could also lobby together so that they could politically fight for their rights to get reparations. Number 16, I hope to discuss what are the best ways people who are wronged could be reparated, or countries that are wronged could be reparated, or both, and what are the best ways what are the best things they could use that reparational money for as well. Number 17, again, I hope to use creative ideas to help with reparation. I think one of the ways to reparate, again, is to help countries in Asia and Africa, as well as Ireland, as I say, and the Six generally and whatnot, to learn about neurodiverse conditions like dyslexia and ADHD. And the irony is, I think that a lot of people with neurodiverse conditions, including autism really, or certainly Asperger's syndrome and things like neurodiverse conditions, have a lot to offer, which if countries in Asia and Africa learnt about those things, I think they would see people with dyslexia and ADHD and conditions like that differently, and see that they do have strengths. I think people have different strengths, and a lot of countries in Asia and Africa only look at academic strengths. And if they know that someone who is not the best academically, it's not because they're not trying or they're being lazy, but they might be good at other areas. So if they try and look at what strengths they do have, they could probably find that a lot of people with dyslexia and ADHD could help to grow those economies, which would again be a way of reparating themselves, so to speak, by helping their dyslexic and ADHD communities to analyze the strengths of their citizens, to utilize them and network together. Number 18, I think this would be a very positive thing, and I hope it will be part of my legacy and things like that. And I think it would be the right thing to do, as I say, and a very positive thing. Number 19, it would be great to support, as I say, Indigenous, Africans and Australasians in software development. And number 20, again, I think it'd be great to support what I call the Six in areas of STEM, science, tech, engineering and maths, just generally. So again, I'd love to hear your questions. I hope this video uploads properly, and I suppose they say to God give the credit, in spite of my lack of faith. I'll say that, and I am out. Peace out.